I am a member of ALEC. Let me explain. I am a member of ALEC, but I am not the face of ALEC. As a state legislator, I've been in for 7 terms. This is my 14th year in office. And early on, I saw there was some legislation that just didn't make any sense. Something that get introduced that didn't help anyone in Wisconsin, didn't help any business in Wisconsin, and you'd wonder why it would come about. And by asking around, pretty soon we figured out that there's a group called the American Legislative Exchange Council that did these model legislative bills that generally are about corporate profit. Because what ALEC is about, it's really a corporate dating service, right? You take a lonely corporation, and maybe a lonely legislator, conservative legislator, you take them out, have dinner, everything works right, it culminates into a beautiful relationship and ultimately some model legislation. And we saw this too often in Wisconsin. So what happened is, I realized that we could never find out what was coming up next. So I joined ALEC in order to get the password that you needed to get their model legislation. And then immediately I turned around and gave it to all my favorite groups in Washington, D.C. so they could then get that model legislation. The problem is that only got us so far, because people just didn't cover ALEC. They're very good at operating in the shadows. And what's happened this year has been so interesting because much like in an old dark room when you turn a light on and you watch the cockroaches scatter, that's what's going on right now with ALEC. So let me just give you a little idea, and I'm going to do this quick. I can tell you stories and stories about ALEC conferences, and I'm at the one right now. By the way, there is a workshop tomorrow called Can Tobacco Cure Smoking? I can't wait to attend that one. But in Wisconsin, to show you as an example of how strong this group is and why it's a very serious group and you have to worry about it. With our governor, Scott Walker, who we're not very proud of, but we have as our governor, everything he has done this legislative session has come from ALEC. The collective bargaining changes came from ALEC. The pension law changes came from ALEC. The photo ID law came from ALEC. The anti-consumer legislation came from ALEC. And we had bill after bill after bill that came through from the American Legislative Exchange Council. So what I've tried to do is be a member, and then thanks to the Progressive magazine out of Madison, Wisconsin, they had asked me, Matt Rothschild, will you go to the conference last year and write an article? So I wrote the cover article for the October issue of the Progressive magazine. If you get a chance, it's online and read it. But just to give you an idea of the workshops and the indoctrination they do, they had a workshop, and I swear this is true, 50 reasons why increased levels of CO2 are good for you. All right, the logic was, in the last 100 years, there are increased levels of CO2, we all agree. And in the last 100 years, people are living longer, we all agree. That was one workshop, and one more I'll share the story of, and then I'm going to wrap up because I think I'd rather take questions later. Everyone's got a lot to offer, and this is a great panel. My other favorite one was I went to one with a bunch of utility company interests, and they were trying to convince people it was a bipartisan popular thing to do renewable energy legislation. 20% by the year 2020, happened in many places. But of course they don't want to do that because that's going to cost money. So the private sector folks from the utility companies want to have a slow down some of the implementation of that. They can't gut the bill, but they can try to gut it piece by piece inside. So there was a head of a 13-state CEO, all these various companies from the industry speaking, and a Texas legislator was the moderator, and I sat right in the front row. God knows why I sat in the front row, but I did. And the legislator's like, all right, we're a big football team. Everyone, the legislators, we're the players, and these are our coaches, so listen up. That is the mentality of ALEC. So these legislators go, they will be wined and dined, and as a member, I can go, because I paid my $100, as opposed to the 25 or 50 or 100,000 corporations paid. And I can go to anything on the agenda, but they don't put the parties and the dinners and all that on the agenda. You get only invited through your state delegation head. So I am probably the loneliest man in Salt Lake City this week at the conference, but there's going to be a lot going on. I'll be glad to answer more questions, but thank you for your interest in ALEC and continue to pursue this. It is a